The 1950s in Hollywood was all about the rise of the first movie stars. In this decade where we think of stereotypical old Hollywood with Marilyn Monroe and James Dean, and while the American film industry was at its peak, other countries were also beginning to gain international acclaim, especially when it came to new methods of filmmaking and new techniques in cinematography.
Welcome to Movie Voyage through space and time. I'm Sylvana.
I'm Zach. This show takes us on a cinematic journey through every decade in which movies have been made.
Today's stop for the USS Movie Voyage is 1954 with the film Seven Samurai.
Can you tell us a thing or two about this?
I will. It was released in 1954 in Japan. This was only 2 years after Japan had regained its independence. Famously, in case you don't know, after 1945 and the Second World War, the U.S. took over Japan.
The second what?
World War.
No, that can't have been.
Yeah, sorry.
But we love each other in this world, I thought. No?
Well, no.
Okay.
There's been two already.
Two?
Two whole world wars.
Two wars?
Yeah. And we really hated the Japanese. But anyway, that's a topic for another podcast, perhaps.
Indeed.
But yeah, we basically took over, had control for a solid few years there. And then Japan became sovereign again in 1952, 2 years after. This movie, Seven Samurai, was released. And then 2 years after that, in 1956, it was released to the U.S. This film is
I think you said that they regained their sovereignty 2 years after this film. I think it was 2 years before.
That's right.
Yes.
So 1952, Japan regained sovereignty. 1954, this movie is released in Japan. 1956, this movie is released in the U.S. And this movie was directed by the famous Akira Kurosawa.
That's right. I don't know that I've ever known his first name. I've only ever heard Kurosawa.
Well, now you know. It's Akira.
Akira.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. A great name, honestly. Akira Kurosawa.
Kurosawa is a nice, strong name.
I like Akira.
Akira's okay. I don't know.
I think it sounds nice.
It's fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it.
Why are you trying to...
I'm not trying to demean the good name of Kurosawa. I am just trying to say that his last name's better than his first name. That's all.
Okay, fine. I'll give you that. Great filmmaker, very prolific, did a lot of films that maybe some people would know of. Seven Samurai is one of his most popular and most acclaimed. And yeah, even though he is really famous now, in the 1950s, believe it or not, it was not really a mainstream hit, this movie, Seven Samurai. But it did garner a lot of critical acclaim later on.
It does kind of befuddle me a little bit that it didn't have a lot of, popularity, I guess, at the time. Even though it did have critical acclaim, the fact that it wasn't a mainstream hit is kind of curious because, at least of the movies we've watched so far and of the handful of other very old movies that I've seen, this seemed to have been the most deep and complex, at least filmically. The cinematography was, I think, interesting, and the acting and the storytelling.
I think that's totally right. I do think, though, that in the 1950s, kind of similar to today, people were just like, I just want to have fun.
I just want to eat some popcorn and watch women get taken by gorillas up the side of the Empire State Building.
Literally, though, think about...
Stop trying to make me think of things.
Yeah, 1950s, we just went through that one World War, a depression, a second World War. They just wanted to have fun. They just wanted to vibe out.
I still can't believe there have been two of those. Surely we're not going to have a third, do you think?
Oh, I don't know, Zachary. I'm sorry. This is a conversation for after the podcast where I can break some news to you.
Oh, wait. Do you know something?
I know something.
Oh, God. All right. Well, maybe we should say it on the podcast. It would be a public service. But instead, let's just move on and talk about Seven Samurai. Had you seen this movie before we had decided to watch it for the podcast?
I have not. I had not. I had seen other Kurosawa films like Yojimbo.
La-di-da.
Thanks to my friends who had introduced it to me.
I think everybody's got those friends.
who love Kurosawa.
No, who are like, oh, you haven't seen this movie yet? It's by Kurosawa.
Yeah, that's probably right. That is Kurosawa. Well, I don't know. He's not I guess he's critically acclaimed.
Yeah.
But he's not very film bro-ish.
Oh,
A film bro-ish director. You don't think so?
I don't know. Yeah, I think film bros love foreign films, but especially like old Japanese films or Chinese films, even like anything that's like a kung fu flick done by seriously.
No, I think you're probably right. I'm just laughing.
I think film bros love that shit.
I'm just laughing because probably I'm not the best, you know.
But you're kind of a film bro.
Exactly.
I just think
that is what I'm saying. Because I am a film bro. But I'm not the best at gauging reaction.
You're an intermediate film bro, though.
Okay.
Since
I appreciate that.
You're not the one going around and introducing people. You're not like you don't listen in on someone else's conversation and they mention that they haven't seen a Kurosawa film. You don't go, you haven't? Then you haven't seen film yet.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. We haven't done that. But,
but maybe we could start.
But now that you've asked me, I have seen Kurosawa films before.
I mean, I didn't.
They were really, really good.
I didn't. But that is the mark of a film bro.
You did. You said, have you seen the film before?
This one.
Oh, okay. Well, fine.
Your film bro is coming out. Your film bro is showing.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, this one was really, really good. And we'll talk more about what I liked or didn't like about it.
Did you have any preconceptions?
Well, why don't you tell me first whether you had seen this film before or any other Kurosawa film for that matter?
No, I'm not a film bro. I hadn't seen this or any other Kurosawa film. I've never really seen film before. But before today, when I saw Seven Samurai, I'd never really seen film. But now that I have, I feel like I can really understand what it's like to watch a film.
Oh, good.
And yes,
since you hadn't seen any. But you obviously knew of Kurosawa.
I'd heard the last name. Yeah.
Well, why don't you tell me what your preconceived notions were beforehand?
Oh.
Before coming into the film, what did you think it was?
Golly.
What had you heard about it? What did you think his style was? Why? Do you think it was critically acclaimed? Like what?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I knew that anything Kurosawa related was going to be absolutely the peak of cinema. And if you had never seen it before, you'd never seen film. So that's what I knew. Uh-huh. And of this movie specifically, Seven Samurai, I think I don't know. I'm trying to remember what my life was like before I saw Kurosawa's Seven Samurai. Mm-hmm. And I think it was dull. It was just
Well, save that for later.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Save that for later.
Well, okay. So, but preconceptions of the movie, I don't know. I expected it to be. I'm not gonna lie. I expected it to be more stylish.
Yeah, I think makes sense. Honestly,
I don't mean any offense. I think some discipline of film bro is going to get really happy at what I'm about to say. Mm-hmm. And probably, I don't know, probably most film bros or most people in general are going to turn their nose up at what I'm about to say. Uh-huh. I've now seen Quentin Tarantino movies and I expected it to be like that. Not like dirty and such, but I expected it to be very stylish. I thought that Quentin Tarantino would have taken his stylistic cues from this type of movie, but it doesn't seem to be that.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't know about that. I think there's certainly, and we can talk about this in the tidbits section, because I certainly have a lot of tidbits to share with you today.
Yeah.
A lot of fun facts for you.
I didn't have time to do any of that. I was doing technical things.
Well, that's how we divide our labor in this household.
Yeah, you know things and I do the manual labor. Okay.
Well, that's not what I mean. Anyway, I think it was very stylized. Mm-hmm. It's just not a style that we like nowadays or that we're used to or that seems very polished, perhaps, because it was new.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it didn't have style. I just expected it to have more style.
Yeah, okay,
I expected it to be kinetic and like, oh my, I thought it was going to be like, we were going to watch this and I was going to say, oh my God, I can't believe they were doing that in the 1950s. But having watched it, I can be like, I can totally see that they could do that in the 1950s. I feel like that's a movie that could have been made in the 1950s.
Well, I have a lot to tell you about I mean, it revolutionized a lot of things in the industry.
Sure, yeah. I told you that film bros and maybe all of humanity generally are going to turn their nose up.
No.
At me saying that, but that's how I felt.
No, I guess
that's in my little heart.
That's fine.
In my
you
little
can
feelings.
Feel what you feel.
In my little feelings, that's how I was feeling.
That's totally fair.
Okay.
I just want you to know that there's like certain things. About it that were revolutionary.
Tell me of them.
Okay, great. I have a lot of things to say. But first, wait. My preconception.
Yes, do tell.
I thought it was going to be a tighter story, I think. Like a little bit more of, I thought, because I had seen other films, and I think the film that I had seen of his, why are you laughing?
No, I was stifling a burp, and I realized that for the people who are actually watching this, I was making a very strange face for a long time. And it just made me laugh. I'm so sorry.
Funny. That's okay. I forgive you. That's hilarious.
That's my fault.
What was I saying?
I don't know.
Oh, preconceptions. Yeah, I thought the story was going to be tighter because I had seen another Kurosawa film that he made later on. And I think that was probably his peak.
Is that Go Jimbo?
Yo Jimbo. Yeah. And so I definitely liked that one better. And I think this was him like kind of learning a lot of what he would then take away for Yo Jimbo. So I think it just didn't feel like I was watching a fully realized Kurosawa film in some ways. So maybe I'd be intrigued for you to watch that one later on.
Do you think Quentin Tarantino could teach him a thing or two?
Probably. But I'm sure Kurosawa could teach Quentin Tarantino a thing or two.
I don't think that's true. And I don't actually mean that to start a war among film bros. But we've now had so many decades of learning about cinema.
That's probably true.
I think that Quentin Tarantino, like Kurosawa, I'm sure revolutionized many things and perfected some things, or at least more perfected them than they had been. But we've had so many decades of people learning the techniques for everything, and everybody studying the techniques of the people from decades before.
True.
That Quentin Tarantino knows everything that Kurosawa knew and so much more. So it's unfair. It's not a serious comparison, but yeah,
sure, yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah.
Okay, some tidbits. Are you ready for them?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of the technique and camera stuff, this is basically the first time that there was a multiple camera setup for a movie.
Interesting.
It was shot by shot before.
I mean, that's how a lot of films are even today. Sometimes you'll have multi-angle and such like that, but you do close-ups, you'll do coverage, you'll wide and whatever. But yeah, I think that's pretty normal.
To do shot by shot and on multiple cameras.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure, but I mean,
I guess that's not to say that we don't do multiple cameras today.
I think we definitely do a lot still of it.
No, yeah, no doubt we do. I'm just saying that also we still do shot by shot.
Well, yeah, sure, but this was the first time.
But this was the first one that they ever did. That's interesting.
Yeah, he had one camera that was basically a wider camera, another camera that was kind of in the middle of the fight. Like, for example, when the horses would come in and the villagers were surrounding it or whatever, the camera would be inside the circle, right?
Yeah.
As if it was a villager.
Yeah.
So that was one of the first times that filmmakers were doing that, like giving you the point of view of not just an outsider watching this movie, but also changing from outsider to insider to following a particular character.
Yeah.
Or like very extreme close-ups of face, things like that.
Yeah.
So that was the first time that really happened, especially with action movies.
The close-ups in this movie were pretty good, particularly with how they used light.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know we're kind of jumping ahead to the stuff we liked about the movie, so I won't necessarily go too much into it. But I did like the camera work a lot.
Okay, great. That was one thing that was kind of revolutionary. Another thing is that this movie took a year to make. A year of filming.
Jesus Christ.
One whole year of filming.
That's just mismanagement.
I know. Well, okay, so here's
and
what
it
happened.
shows in the pacing of the movie.
Let me tell you about it.
All right.
So a year of filming with multiple breaks in between.
Oh, okay.
And these breaks were the producers being like, you you've put up, you're spending way more money than we agreed. Like we agreed on a very set amount of money, and now you're creating whole sets and shit, and like having more people than we thought. And Kurosawa, and they would be like, okay, well, that's it. We're closing the production. And Kurosawa would literally, this is a real story, would be like, okay. And he would go fishing in the countryside for like a week or two. And then the producers would be like, we have to finish the movie. We've already sunk all this so much money. And he was like, great.
You know,
and this happened several times.
That's what Peter Jackson did with Lord of the Rings.
It's kind of hilarious, actually.
Yeah. I mean, Peter Jackson didn't even go fishing. He would just, it was the sort of situation where he was just off in New Zealand. Yeah. Everybody who was a producer was back in LA. Yeah. And they were spending so much more than their budget. Yeah. Like for one movie, I think they had spent like the budget for all three or something like that. And then they'd go back to the producers on their like monthly call or whatever. Yeah. And he'd be like, yeah, I mean, we're out of money. And they're like, but what are you doing? We gave you this much. And he's like, yeah, I know, but we don't have money. Yeah. And they're like, but we gave you, that's everything. And he's like, well, is it though? Because we haven't made the movie yet. Yeah. You can't release, we haven't filmed everything yet. Yeah. Do you really want to have wasted all that money? And they were like, but you did. Oh, all right. Well, here's more money.
Yeah, that's basically exactly what happened. Like Kurosawa would literally just be like, they're going to come back, whatever. So the production halted like something like 3 times or something like that. And every time the producers would be like, never mind, fucking finish the movie then. Yeah. So it took a long, long time.
Nice.
Which was really interesting. There was several other things about it. Like I mentioned, the set design. He created the whole village from scratch, basically, as a set. A thing that wasn't supposed to happen because they didn't have the money. And then he was like, they're not going to feel like real samurai. They're not going to feel like real villagers. We have to basically create this for them. Oh, so he spent a lot of money on
My inner film bro is actually really pleased at that. That makes me warm
Yeah,
inside.
no, he genuinely was like, we're not going to be in like a parking lot or something. Like, that's stupid. So
I love that.
He literally just created this village in the middle of the countryside in Japan, which was awesome. Yeah. And then another thing was that it wasn't supposed to be 7 samurai. It was supposed to be less people. As he was writing the script and as he was developing
Interestingly named. He was foretelling that it was going to be 7 and he didn't even know it yet.
Well, it was supposed to be 6 or something, I think, or 5. And as he was writing more, he was like, no, there's another character missing. There's another character missing.
Was it the crazy dude?
Well, that's what I was going to say. At the end, it was supposed to be 6, and that's what they agreed on. And then last minute, he was like, no, we need a drunk dude. What are we doing here?
We need a drunk dude.
What are we doing here? We can't have all honorable samurai. We need a crazy one. Yeah. So they added the 7th samurai, who's like the kind of off-the-wall, kooky, drunk man.
That character seemed so anime to me.
Yeah, like, totally.
He just seemed like he belonged in an anime.
That's another thing. He also basically left him to improvise the whole thing.
So, but did they have the story already of him having originally been a villager? Or did they kind of create that as they went?
I think they already had the bones of it, but then they were like, you run with it. You
That's
do
so
what
cool.
you have to do with it.
That's so cool.
So that was cool.
I mean, he was actually the most compelling character.
Yeah, totally. Which is great that he was like, no, we need the one more person. This is not going to be okay.
Yeah.
So that was very, very interesting. 2 more tidbits real quick. One is that Kurosawa was the editor of the movie. He edited it himself. And he was editing it while it was being filmed. He didn't wait until after everything. He wanted to be editing it while it was being made so that he would know what still needed to be done or whether something needed to be remade. It was crazy. It was crazy. He was like directing, writing, and editing all at the same time. But the people that worked with it, listen to me.
It can't be.
The people that worked with him literally were like, he's the greatest living editor in history.
Well, they're wrong.
How do you know that?
Well, I watched the movie. Dude needed to edit a lot more. And that said, not just it's a little flabby for half the movie, maybe even more than half the movie. It was just way too elongated every sequence.
It was very elongated.
The pacing was non-existent. It was glacial. But it seems insane to edit the movie before you have the rest of the movie.
I know, it's
because
really
then you don't know what to set up for what.
Well,
what beats might need to repeat or something like that.
I don't know why.
But it did.
It's very interesting. Well, yeah. Well, we can talk more about that. But Yeah, it was really interesting. And also then it became, to that point, Japan's
Highest grossing?
yes, and also the biggest spend in a movie. It cost that much for the production of it.
Nice.
So yeah. And the last tidbit.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
The very last one is the fact that this was the first movie that focused on assembling a team.
What does that mean?
So in the film, just a recap for people.
Oh, you mean the story? The story being about assembling a team?
Yeah, that's right. In the story,
so this paved the way for Ocean's 11?
This paved the way for Ocean's 11. This paved the way for Avengers.
Assemble?
This
paved the way for Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not really, because it was written before that. But I mean, it hadn't been filmed yet, certainly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but anyway.
But yeah, this was basically the first film that was like, oh, it starts with one and then another and you assemble this kooky cast of characters that all have a particular mission and things. One thing to do for the movie.
It was the first ensemble.
Yeah,
effort.
that's right.
Interesting. Well, that's a good claim to fame, I suppose. Well, all right.
That's it. That's all. Those my.
I have no tidbits because I just didn't have time to find them. So I'm assuming that's everything to know about this movie.
Well, there's other things.
No, that's impossible.
Okay.
But what do we think worked about this movie? Writing wise, what do we think?
I think it's crazy because the acting was really kooky. But I really appreciated some of the acting. I think it was well done. I think I really like the drunk guy. I like the senior samurai, like the older, more composed one that assembles everybody.
I think I liked his acting the most. He seemed to be a film actor, whereas so many other people seem to be stage actors in how exaggerated their facial expressions would be and how exaggerated their physical acting would be, including Drunk Guy.
Yeah.
He would express himself. He was very good, and he was very emotionally evocative because he would sell his emotions with his like big movements. He would like jump up and stomp the ground when he was upset or whatever. Things like that. That just, it's not realistic. It's not good film acting.
That's true.
Not at least not good film dramatic acting, but it was still interesting and good. But I would say, as far as like, I don't want to say good. It was still interesting and evocative.
Yeah.
But as far as like good dramatic screen acting,
I could see that.
I don't think I don't know, old guy, the main old bald samurai, liked him a lot.
What about the young buck?
The young buck, yeah, he was good.
What about the other guy, the one that dies, but he's like the young samurai is like, I love you.
Oh yeah.
He was pretty good.
I mean, he wasn't like theatrical acty, but also what did he do?
He killed a lot of people.
True. Yeah, but it was all off screen. So what did he do?
I liked him.
I did too. I liked the character, but I mean, like acting wise, he held a straight face, and that was kind of his role.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. How do you feel about the really exaggerated villager who was always like,
"Oh my god"? Yeah, I don't know. Try to describe the face that this is for the audience. I'm going to try doing it.
Do it. If it's someone who like has half of their eyes open, their mouth agape the entire time, and just looks like a buffoon constantly.
Yeah, like the bottoms, it's like his face is
like
completely stretched down and open for the mouth, but it's like sagging. He looked like a clown.
Yeah, he did.
If you had painted his face white, given him like big like paint around the mouth and a big red nose, he would have looked like a clown.
That's true.
And I have no idea why he was doing that. I put that in the basket of theatrical acting.
Yeah.
Because I think that was supposed to convey, I'm upset and scared and I've peed my pants.
Yeah.
Possibly there's a trail of poopy duty behind me.
Ew.
And I don't know what to do. Please help me. Please save me. I am going to die of a heart attack.
Well, I guess it conveyed that, but in really horrible ways.
Yeah. It was not it's not good screen acting.
Right.
But maybe good stage acting.
Well, I feel similarly about the young lady. The young Shino or whatever was
Ping.
her name. Yeah.
Yes.
I think everything would have been a little bit more compelling because obviously the love story was part of it.
Can I just, before you go on to that, I said Ping, and then you didn't sign off on what I said, and I want to let everyone know, or you did just glancing over it. I want to make sure that everyone knows I'm saying Ping, not because that was her character's name in this movie, but we made the association between this and the movie Mulan. Which I think Mulan kind of lifted their love story, or their whole story, from the love story in Seven Samurai, between the young buck samurai and some young girl in the village
who pretends to be a guy.
Her father forces her to pretend to be a guy, and the young buck samurai falls in love with her anyway. And he's confused by it, and then
he's confused by it for sure.
But allows himself
bisexual king, maybe
he's a bisexual king, perhaps. Anyway, but that's why I say Ping, because that's the character name or the fake
Mulan.
fake Mulan, in Mulan.
Yeah, she kind of sucked. The acting there kind of sucked, and I think it would have been more compelling if she had taken it more seriously. If the acting was a little bit more pulled back and restrained and serious.
Are you saying that? Are you responding to the scene where she was called a hussy in front of the whole village and she was weeping on the ground?
No, I think in general, everything that she did was exaggerated and weird, and she kept crying in really strange ways and just being like, don't touch me, don't look at me, but also I love you, but also let's have sex, but also, you scare me.
But also, you scare me.
That's basically how it was.
Is that what it's like being a woman?
No.
Oh, okay. I mean, I've never been one.
Well, let me tell you.
Okay.
It's not that complicated.
No, you're not going, don't touch me, but I love you, but oh my goodness, have sex with me, but I'm scared of you.
No.
No?
No.
That's not what you think of me when you see me?
No.
Okay, all right.
I don't have mixed emotions about you.
Okay. What are the emotions? You don't have to say, though.
They're all good.
Okay.
They're all positive.
Oh, great.
They're all love emotions.
Love emotions.
Love.
That is the name of the cheesiest rom-com that I can imagine.
Love emotions.
Love Emotions.
That'd be funny.
Can you imagine if a movie called Love Emotions came out?
I would watch the shit out of it.
Would you?
Yeah.
Let's write it. Let's get on
write
it.
Doesn't
it?
Let's
It sounds like something.
Hallmark.
I was gonna say it sounds like something that ChatGPT
Yeah.
came up with, and that would be perfect for Hallmark.
Love emotions.
Hallmark is gonna make so many new movies now that ChatGPT is
You're right.
writing movies for them.
You're 100% right. Totally.
The formula is out there, and that's perfect for ChatGPT.
Anyway, I think if her acting had been a little bit more restrained, pulled back, serious,
Subsumed.
it would have been better. The love story would have been more compelling. I would have cared more about it. It would have been another added positive to the movie in general. For me. But I will say what I do think the cinematography worked here.
Okay, so cinematography-wise, it was fine for like a 50s movie. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to lie, we had several moments throughout the entire film where we were saying to ourselves and each other, wait, where are we?
Yeah, that's
true.
true.
Are we still in the village? Or
yeah,
no, we're in the big town now. Wait, are we still in the big town? Where are we? Oh, wait, no, okay, so we're over there, and we're just watching some random scene play out, but we're still in the big town, I think. And, here's our characters. Yeah, so they're over here. And wait, where are we? We're on a path somewhere. Are they in the village now? Are they still there? Are they in transit between the two?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. There was so many scenes where our setting hadn't been established very well.
That's true. That is fair.
I don't know if that's an editing problem. Kurosawa editing while he's fucking filming the film.
Yeah.
Or was that a directing problem in general? I don't know.
I don't know. I think that's fair. I think editing was probably the least thing that I liked about this film. Mm-hmm. I think the writing was good. I will say, I think the story is good. The story holds up. The story clearly is something that people like and that has been recreated over and over.
I was going to say it's a good archetype for a story.
Totally.
And it's not like it's the first time that type of story was told, because we had books before the films came out.
Yes.
But I think it was well done. I think the story was evocative, and it made me care about characters, and they had wisdoms that they were suspensing from time to time.
Yeah.
And I thought it was
I liked
fine.
how unique each one of the samurai seemed to be.
Yeah, I like that they basically wrote the whole film of Mulan inside of this other film that was going on.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, that's pretty impressive.
That is very, very impressive. Yeah, so the writing, I think I enjoyed the story. I think some shots were really well done. Obviously, a lot of it was like a lot of movement and following, like bandits on horses and things like that, and evoking like this otherness between us and the bandits and things like that. And I enjoyed that.
But to follow up on that and the cinematography, there were also moments where we were like, I don't know who we're looking at. Are the bandits?
That's true.
Are these the bandits or are these our guys?
That's true. That is very true. But is that just because we're racist? I don't know.
It might be that. It might be that, but it might be that we're unobservant we didn't know what kind of clothes our people were wearing and that their people were wearing. But it's also kind of grainy black and white footage
That's
and it could be shadowy at times and such. So it was kind of, especially when it was nighttime.
Yeah,
obviously.
I think that's right.
But also the racism.
But also the racism. We'll admit it freely here.
Sure, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's right. I think the writing was probably the story in general was probably the most compelling part for me out of the whole film.
Yeah.
More than the editing and things like that, more than the acting. But how about you? Or how about the score? Tell me about that. Do you feel any which way about it?
I don't remember it.
It was all very like trumpety and horn.
I don't know that it made an impression on me, which means that it's average.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Because it did its job, but it didn't stand out enough because it sucked, and it didn't stand out enough because it was great, at least for me.
Kurosawa also worked really, really closely with the composer of this, and the composer I read, I think, died before the film was released, and Kurosawa had to kind of like finish it.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Weird.
This man was just like doing everything basically.
He was plate spinning
single-handedly.
He's got a camera in one hand. He's got his other hand on Final Cut on his Macintosh over here while he's playing a horn into a microphone.
Yeah.
This guy was doing everything.
Yeah, true.
I respect that. You know what? This project was scrappy as hell, and I love it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so what was the thing that for sure you were like, this is the one redeemable thing about it, for example? We talked a lot about the things that you didn't enjoy, but
I think I did enjoy this movie, and I think that the main thing that really played well for me was the relationship between the old bald samurai and
OG samurai, we should call him.
We'll call him OG samurai and young buck samurai.
Yeah.
I liked that relationship. I liked OG Samurai. Basically, I just liked OG Samurai. Anytime he was in the scene, I was liking it because he had a very calming way about him, but and he also seemed to have a sense of humor. He wasn't just like totally stoic and wise and contemplative. He was fun and jovial, and he just seemed like a good guy. But he also, I bought when he was very serious. I bought when he was inspirational. He was great for the role. I also liked Drunk Dude. I think he kind of annoyed me at the beginning, I think.
Well, yeah, me too.
Because he was just so over the top.
Yeah.
Like I said, he just seemed like he belonged in an anime. Yeah. And I stand by that because anime is very, the acting in anime is so over the top.
Yeah.
And I think that's just the type of performance he was giving. But I liked the story arc with him.
Yeah, there was some complexity behind his character.
I saw it coming, and I was still satisfied by the reveal that he was probably raised on a farm as a farmer. That's and he somehow escaped and became a samurai. And so now he hates the samurai because he's seen what life as a villager or a farmer was like from their perspective, seeing samurai go by. And even now that he's quote unquote kind of made it as a samurai, even though it seems like he faked his way in, he's kind of made it now, but he's still resentful. Yeah. But he also hates villagers and farmers because
he's like, stand up.
Yeah, I get. He's like ashamed of them on their behalf.
Yeah,
or something. I don't know.
I'm sure he felt like, oh, you didn't fight for me. You know, like my village burned down or whatever.
Sure.
You didn't do anything. And because of that, I basically lost
everything.
Yeah.
So
it's very complex.
I like that character a lot too. Young buck character. I don't know. All the other samurai. All the other villagers. I don't know. They were there. They showed up. They showed up on time.
Right.
I'm sure.
That's right.
You know, they collected a paycheck.
I don't think there was a single villager that I liked. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. What about the father of Ping?
No.
You said no before I even.
Well, I knew you were gonna say him. He was a horrible man. He was a horrible man.
He cared so much about his daughter.
It was the getting raped. Yeah, I mean, fair, but also don't abuse her. Don't call her a whore in front of the entire community. Maybe.
Called her damaged
goods. I don't know. I didn't like him.
Yeah.
I didn't like the guy whose face permanently looked like he
like a clown.
Yeah, like a clown. I didn't like the guy that suddenly was like, "Oh yeah, this is my wife." Remember? Who was dying in the freaking fires?
Oh yeah, he was like, "I'll lead you there. I know where it is." Yeah. And then once they got there, he jumped ship to go into the burning building to try to save his wife.
And conversely, led to the death of one of the samurai.
Yeah.
So I didn't really like him. Yeah, none of the villagers.
But that at least felt. But that at least felt like it was emotionally understandable, explicable. Yeah. Because if you've lost your significant other, and they're off somewhere in a bandit village, and you've got people who are brave and strong and willing to fight, wouldn't you be like, actually, I'll show you where they are.
Yeah.
And then you're going to sneaky stealth in there?
That's true.
You wouldn't do that for me?
No, I would, but clearly she just wanted to off herself.
Yeah, that I don't understand.
Well, yeah, me neither. But anyway, I don't know. The villagers were not my favorite. I have a question for you.
Yes.
What do we think Japanese people felt about this film? Like, when was it socially acceptable to basically criticize themselves and the ways of the samurai and like some of the, because I'm sure that a lot of Japanese people felt like, oh, that was like the age of heroes, the age of, like. And
it's sacrilege to make fun of them because they were supposed
they
to
were
be
all about honor.
It
was like very revered people.
Yeah.
And this film definitely made them seem like they didn't care about actual humans. They only cared about themselves. They only cared about money. They didn't have honor, that they were drunk. The villagers were clearly concerned about them coming into the village and raping their women. So it was very critical of samurai.
I honestly thought that it felt like a very unbiased way of looking at the entire political or socio-economic landscape there of the complete dirt poor farmers and samurai and bandits, and everyone seemed to just have a problem with ethics in kind of every regard. And samurai, it showed them as being revered by the common person, but that still the common person was like, they might be, there's samurai and worship. But also fucking don't touch my women.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Well, I'm just wondering how it felt to have made this movie in the 1950s, post a time where Japanese had to really self-reflect and figure out how they were going to move on after World War II.
Yeah.
After, everything that happened.
Okay, so
they were rebuilding their society. They were trying to really industrialize and catch up.
I think after World War II, this is something that I remember reading when I did a podcast episode on Karate Kid. And I might be mixing up these words, but I think after World War II, they went back to practicing Shintoism. And I think that, like old Shintoism, I think. And I think that Shintoism had been kind of co-opted by militaristic leaders into something that was much more adversarial and aggressive and led to, for example, the suicidal pilots from Japan. So that was kind of an offshoot of that militarism inside of Shintoism. And then once the World War II was over, I think they kind of reclaimed Shintoism for the peaceful way it's really supposed to be practiced.
Yeah. It's really interesting to me because I feel like it's almost courageous in some ways, right? Of like, I mean, think about it. Like, imagine, like, after 9/11, like, we didn't really want to be criticizing ourselves very much. I feel like it was like a lot more about being patriotic and things like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that was the predominant position. But I mean, there were still pockets of people that were saying that it was an inside. No, I mean, there's the kooks that are saying it's an inside job, but there are also people saying, well, yeah, they crashed the plane into our buildings, but it's because we've been doing this stuff over here, so we need to be self-reflective.
That is very true.
Yeah,
it's interesting that at a time when they finally are regaining their independence, they're also being very self-aware of their history and potential.
Yeah.
Like the fact that even the most peak of what was their civilization had its faults.
Yeah, absolutely.
I find that really interesting.
That is. It's fascinating. That and they, as a society, recovered so well. Not only their society, like actually like the buildings and the people, but the culture itself was preserved, and they kind of regressed, but in a good way, I guess, back to a more peaceful version of Shintoism, and they reclaimed a lot of the old philosophies that had been dominating the country, rather than, I don't know if it was Zen Buddhism. Am I drunk?
I don't know, actually.
I think it was, am I crazy? Actually, I might be crazy, but I think it was Zen Buddhism. That was the offshoot there that started becoming corrupted and militarized.
Well, that's really interesting. That's very interesting. And this all kind of leads us to the next couple of questions, which is, do you feel like this movie was merely of its time? And does it hold up?
I don't think it holds up.
Okay, tell me more.
I think it's, by today's standards, it's literally bad.
Yeah.
It's literally bad.
Yeah, I think that's true.
There were a couple of moments, like there are things to like about it. There is a good movie in there, but by God, is it not edited well. And I don't think they had enough coverage for exposition shots and things like that to take us from scene to scene. Yeah, it's too long and doesn't do enough to establish things.
Yeah, it's like at the 3.5 hours, everyone.
Yeah, so it's madness. Yeah. It's, for today's standards, it's literally a bad movie. But that's not to say that for back then, I would say that it was a bad movie in comparison with other 1950s movies. Yeah. Maybe not. I don't know. It was epic. It told a big story. I just don't think it did it well.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. This is not a movie that I think I would rewatch, and not a movie that right now would be like, this was the best movie I've ever seen in my life. I think obviously during the time that it was released, it was revolutionary, and I totally understand that. I totally see those merits. And like I said, like the story was actually good. Like there was a lot of it that why it's been replicated in a lot of ways, right? There's when I was researching about this, there were like countless movies that are considered to have taken inspiration from this movie, and from the storyline and the structure of this story. And so that is incredible. That is amazing. Especially, this is our first non-American movie that we've done in the podcast.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I really appreciated seeing another part of the world and the perspective that they had on things then.
Yeah, and particularly knowing that this was almost directly post World War II.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do we know whether or not Kurosawa was impacted?
I actually don't know.
Personally, by World War II, either having served or...
Yeah, I have no idea, actually.
That would be interesting to find out.
It would be interesting to find out, yeah.
Because it seemed like he had opinions on war.
Yeah.
And like his old man samurai character, he said he was done with war. Yeah. He didn't want to fight anymore. Fighting was lame. Yeah. And then went and took up the only way he would fight again, seemingly, was for a lost cause and people who just had a really just claim. It wasn't about honor, at least, I mean, it's an honorable thing to do, I suppose, but it wasn't about the reputation of honor.
Yeah, and or the money or the money, like that. It was truly
just about
like,
doing something
this
good.
This felt right.
Yeah, so It seems like he must have been influenced by the war in some way.
I'm sure he must have been.
Yeah, I mean, it happened in his country, so in one way or other, he was going to be impacted. But
that's right.
I didn't know if there was a very personal impact it might have had.
Yeah, I think that is basically my takeaway as well, is that it is of its time. It was revolutionary for its time. It is not a movie that holds up by today's standards, of course.
Yeah, not at all.
But I don't know how many movies of those we're going to encounter, to be perfectly fair.
I don't know. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, I think we said holds up.
Really? Did we?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty good, actually.
I mean, I remember talking about it at the time. We were saying that the pacing was actually great.
Yeah, you're right.
And it told a snappy story. It kept moving along.
Yeah.
I think that one held up. I don't remember. Did we say Pinocchio held up?
Probably not. I don't think we did. I don't know. Okay, well, it's time for our judgment on this movie.
All right. So, firstly, what did the wider critical audience or the critics say about
this is our
Seven
first
Samurai
movie that has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
100%.
More so than Sherlock Jr.?
Yeah, I think Sherlock had like a 98 or something like that.
Okay. Wow. First one that had 100%.
100%. 100% critical.
Yeah.
When it comes to audience score, it's a 97.
Okay. So still up
pretty
there.
high. Still pretty high.
So, but there's 3% of me's out there.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I will have you all know that I have not rated Seven Samurai on Rotten Tomatoes. So that's not thanks to me.
Yeah. It's other people, clearly.
Yeah.
I also think people have different ideas of why they're giving 100% to Seven Samurai, right? Like you and I are basing it very much by today's standards.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are basing it by the standards of when the movie was made.
But that to me, that doesn't seem fair. Because you're just assuming what you might have felt like had you lived in these other times.
Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, or maybe it's a bunch of old reviewers who are 100 years old and they lived in the 1950s and they were adults in the 1950s, so that they got a good feel for the cinematic landscape of the time for like dramatic movies. But other than that, it seems like you're just basically pretending. You're cosplaying as a 1950s person, and you're saying, well, I would have loved it back then.
Well, here's the thing. I have friends who love Kurosawa. I don't know about how they feel about Seven Samurai in particular, but a lot of them love.
Can we phone a friend? Can we find out?
I mean, I think definitely. Actually, my friend Matt, I know for a fact, shout out to Matt if he's listening to this. Okay. He's a very big Kurosawa fan. It's because of him that I watch Yojimbo. I think it's just there's other people who like feel a little bit differently about it, and I totally understand that the pacing is off. It was really long. I think there were several times where you and I, it was almost like we're riff tracking it or something, where we're like line, like
speak.
Not gonna say anything.
Say words,
for 2
man.
minutes. What's happening? It was not for me. I would be intrigued for you to watch another Kurosawa film.
I would love to watch another Kurosawa film.
More well developed.
This movie didn't turn me off of Kurosawa because, like those other reviewers who are giving it 100%, they're pretending that they know what they would have felt. But I mean, I can kind of connect with that emotion a little bit because I appreciate the film for what it was historically.
Yeah. And he seems like you really fucking cared, which
and I do love that. That tickles my
he cared about every single part of the movie. He was very committed to it. He did what he had to do to publish it and get it out there into the world. Yeah. Again, a very hard thing, I'm sure, to do when you're in Japan. Like, you weren't part of Hollywood, right? Like,
yeah, fair.
Who was going to be watching Japanese movies? It was very hard, I feel like, to convince people, hey, give me money. Maybe Americans will like this movie. Well,
at the same time, they might not have the budget of Hollywood.
Yeah.
For a huge fleet of movies coming out every year. But this was already the 1950s, and we'd had a few decades of filmmaking in the
that's true.
United States. So in Japan, they must have been watching our programming.
Yeah, that's true.
So there was an infrastructure, or at least a network of people that were already ready to consume film.
Yeah.
So if there's somebody over there with money, they can at least shell out for
that's
one
true.
movie a year to be made in Japan.
That is fair. That's true.
I'm sure they still had a decent budget, maybe.
Yeah, that's probably.
They made a whole village. Did they really burn those buildings down in the movie, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how else they would have accomplished it. It looked like they were just burning those buildings down.
And also, most of them were doing their own stunts, really.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that. All right. Well, what do we think? Critical rating, what would you give it?
No, I think you got to start.
What?
I have always been doing the critical and the heart rating first. I want to hear from you first this time.
Critical rating, I would give and again, we're giving it a rating based on today's standards.
Critical rating out of 10.
Critical rating out of 10. Bless you.
Thank you.
I would give it a 4.
Yeah. I think I'm very close to that, probably. Maybe a 5.
No, I'd give it a 3.
Wow.
I'm going down.
Wow. You're just remembering. It's giving you flashbacks.
Yeah, I have a slideshow of moments from the movie just went through my mind, and I was remembering how I felt about my disorientation and like honestly, if we just I know we're kind of just we're going back to discussing the movie at length, but the pacing of the first 2 hours of the movie was abysmal.
Yeah.
It's just, we're hanging out with these guys for a while in a dark room. Nobody's saying anything. We're just hanging out here for a long time.
Yeah.
And then someone's like, did you fart? And someone's like, huh? What? And then someone else is like, hey, stop playing that note on that guitar thing over there. And he's like, I can't hear you. I'm deaf. And then someone else is like, I'm hungry. That's just what, like, that's a 20-minute scene right there. And then it cuts to them being outside and they're looking for another samurai for a while.
Yeah, I think obviously if this movie was being remade right now, right, they would make it a lot more compact and tight. It would be a lot more like find the heroes, find the samurai, and let's get going. It's go time. We're fighting now.
Yeah, and that's not to say, like, I don't want this to come off as, like, I want every movie to be a Marvel movie.
No,
I don't want it to be formulaic. I don't want it to necessarily, like, be popping from moment to moment. But if there is going to be some downtime, there has to be beauty in it somewhere.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And when we're hanging out in a dank dungeon with a bunch of very depressed peasants...
Yeah, it was rough.
For too long, I'm going stir crazy. You've got to give me something.
Well, do you feel like this movie gave you like a real sadness?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I left feeling very uplifted. Which I'm sure wasn't probably Kurosawa's.
Well, no,
I'm
the
sure
movie,
that is not what he wanted to give us.
The movie,
obviously.
the last shot in the movie was of the samurai's graves.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. This was supposed to be. I don't know if bittersweet is even the right way to describe it, but bitter certainly.
Yeah,
War
I mean,
is
also,
nice.
We didn't mention this, but just as much as he was criticizing the peasants, the samurai, being like, oh, most of them are without honor.
Yeah, but
Most
the
of them
peasants
are doing
weren't
this for
saints.
this. The peasants also sucked.
Yeah.
Like, not just because I'm saying that I didn't like the characters, but he literally made them murderers too.
Yeah, and abusing his daughter. Yeah.
Like, kind of just dumb. Kind of like very like also just unwilling to fight for people or themselves. Like cowardly, honestly. Obviously that changes a little bit by the end of the movie, but it seems to be a real indictment of both
of humanity.
Both classes, right?
And
like
I
the peasant and then the more elite.
Yeah, it's a commentary on humanity, but I think it's also a commentary on desperation.
Yeah,
in and around war and combat.
Yeah,
especially for people who can't defend themselves. But it just because you're being oppressed by bandits and things like that doesn't mean that you're you as a group of people are holy or without sin.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
One of the most quick.
The moral tale or the moral tales that they were telling, I connected with. I mean, like I said, the story and different elements of it were good.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah,
powerful. I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
The one scene in the movie that I almost chucked something at the TV was when they're like, "Oh yeah, I fell asleep and all the rice is gone," and I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Who does that? Are you telling me that
you're the only thing that you had to do was protect that rice?
That's all you had to do, and that's all you own. That is all the entire village owns."
So for the people who haven't seen the movie,
oh my god,
there was a villager. They went to a big town near their village so that they could shop for samurai. And they were tantalizing these potential samurai to help their cause by offering them rice. They didn't have food or anything of value to give them.
Literally nothing but rice.
Yeah, they could feed them for the extent of their stay while they were defending them. So they only had rice to offer. And the dude, was it Clownface?
Yeah, it was Clownface.
Clownface was supposed to be watching the rice while someone else was out in town looking for samurai to hire. And he fell asleep and someone stole all the rice.
Yeah.
And it was like in this huge vase in front of him.
That literally probably took like weeks for them to harvest.
I know. And that is an insane loss. It was heartbreaking.
Horrible. I genuinely was like, I'm done with this movie.
I wanted to smack that guy upside the face.
Yeah.
I wanted to shake him by his turban, or no, not turban, flipping tunic.
Yeah.
And I can't believe it.
It was horrible.
But at the same time, it was also frustrating because there was just one more setback. And as a viewer, we didn't need any more emotional reasons to have our emotions on tenterhooks.
Yeah, that's
for
true.
the villagers.
That
it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
It was like beating a dead horse of anxiety in the audience.
Yeah. It was like the villagers all are poor. They only can make rice. That is the only thing that they make.
They're all poor. They're all starving. There are bandits attacking them.
There's bandits attacking them. They can barely even get one samurai to help them at this point.
Yeah.
And then their rice is gone. And everybody there is silly, honestly. They also like I'm sorry, but like also like every single woman in this movie was helpless. Like they were just bawling their eyes out and being hysteric the entire time.
To be fair, most of the men were helpless too.
Yeah, that's probably true.
What can you expect?
Well, some of them weren't.
Name 3.
The one dude whose wife was being sex trafficked or whatever.
Do we not think he was helpless? He got one of the samurai killed.
Yeah, but he trying to rescue his wife.
Oh, okay, so
he led them there.
You're at least saying he had some agency.
Yeah.
And he was trying to do something, and he was exerting his own influence over the world.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he wasn't just cowering.
The women were all either cowering and crying and bawling their eyes out, or hoarse. They wanted us to believe at times.
Do you think the movie wanted us to believe that?
Well, maybe not, but maybe that. But that is how they were seen back then, I guess. So, or a woman who was taken and she just couldn't deal with it and killed herself.
Yeah, that was interesting. I wonder why with the killing of the self.
I don't know. That was very strange.
Yeah.
That's very weird.
I don't know, but no, I agree. I think the women were done dirty in this movie.
Yeah.
And that is of its time very much.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I don't think that women started getting really pretty full agency in movies until, I don't know, 2000s.
Yeah, that's really sad, actually. But
maybe, I don't know.
There's 90s movies that are really, there's definitely like female.
Okay. Yeah, if the female was the star of the movie, then she would have agency.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
If she was the star of the movie, she would have agency. If she was not the star of the movie, she's going to be her only interest is keeping her boyfriend or not taking the boyfriend back.
Yeah,
and then the boyfriend has to convince her or something like that. That is the role of every woman in every film, unless she's the star.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what is your heart rating for this movie then? Out of 5.
Okay, so my critical rating was 3 out of 10. I think my heart rating is 3.9 out of 5.
Nice.
So better.
Yeah.
I liked the film. Like I said, there were things that worked for me, and I think those shine through all of the shit.
Yeah. I think I'm with you. I was going to say 3.5 to 4.
Oh, okay.
So similar.
All right.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the big question that we ask here in this podcast every single time is, did this movie improve your life or ruin it?
Okay. Did this movie ruin my life or improve it?
I don't think we've said improve it more than once.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
I think, which one improved our life?
I think Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Yeah, that was the best one we've seen so far.
I think that's probably true.
I would say this movie both ruined my life and improved it.
Well, tell me more.
Well, it was so bad that it ruined my life. But that said, there was also some good in here that was good enough that I think it improved my life.
That's interesting.
So I think I'm right back where I started.
Okay.
It made it terrible, then it made it good, and I think I'm right back where I started. I don't know. On balance, it probably ruined my life more than it improved it. But I think it did do both things.
Yeah, I think I'm with you.
Yeah.
I think having seen it has enriched my life in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has made me think more deeply about certain things.
Mm-hmm.
That's always a good thing. I love thinking. I love learning.
Yeah.
But did it like cinematically like really improve my life?
Did it teach you something about yourself? Did it show you beauty in a way you'd never seen it before?
Yeah,
Did it tell a
probably not.
story that spoke to you on some way? It doesn't even have to be unique, but what did it move you?
It didn't move me. So no, it did not move me, but it gave me, it filled a gap in my knowledge of life.
Yeah, but
and
that's
history.
that's other people putting that on you, man. That's film bros out in the world like, you gotta watch Kurosawa, man. It'll change your life,
no,
man.
I don't think that's what I mean. I
Well,
mean
it was a
that
gap
literally-
in your knowledge. But there are many movies that you haven't seen that you don't care about. You only care about having seen this one because other people are like, "Hey, man, you got to see this. It's Kurosawa,
I don't
man."
think that's what I mean. Still,
Oh, okay.
like I don't mean that it was a gap in my knowledge of film.
Ah,
I think knowing about this period in time in Japan
Mm-hmm.
when this was made and learning more about it was a gap in my knowledge of world history
Oh,
that
I
this movie
see.
helped improve.
interesting. And you don't think you got that from watching Shogun?
We've seen one episode.
I feel very well educated.
Well, I don't. I didn't from that. So
The other Kurosawa movies, do they not
Yeah.
show this time period?
yeah, they do. But I mean, I don't mean literally the time period of the samurai.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, knowing more about when Kurosawa made this film, the context of the 1950s in this part of the world.
Oh, so
Yeah.
knowing about the production of the movie
Yeah.
was a value to you. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, well, that's an interesting praise for a movie.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily a praise. I'm just saying that it did give something to my life.
Yeah.
It added something to my life.
The movie didn't, though. The story of the production did.
Yeah, that's probably true. But would I have really learned about it had I not seen this movie?
Guess not, but that seems like a tortured way of giving a movie credit.
I'm not giving it credit. I'm just saying that I did learn something from this podcast right now.
Yeah, I know, but we're in terms of whether or not the movie ruined your life or made it better.
No, I mean, I already said that. I don't think it provided anything of real emotional value
Yeah.
to me at all.
Yeah, I think the where it breaks down for me is it didn't move me and it bored me. So
Yeah.
that on balance of emotions, it was all negative.
Yeah, I see that.
Almost all negative anyway.
So you wouldn't watch this movie again?
Hell no.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I might. I might actually.
I think I would. I could.
Maybe I'll give it another try.
It's really long. We didn't even finish it in one sitting.
We didn't even finish it in 2 sittings.
Yeah, that's right. We really took our time with it. I would watch parts of it again.
Yeah, I would watch the second half again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will never watch the first half of this movie again. That's for damn sure.
That makes sense. All right. Well,
So,
that is it.
That's everything. So if you want to follow us, you can go to Instagram and search up the handle at Movie Voyage Pod.
That's
All right. That's how Instagram works.
Yeah.
If you'd like to find us on YouTube, you can click on the search bar on YouTube and type at Movie Voyage Pod. All right? That's how you do it.
And you can see us.
You can see us.
Our
Or you
beautiful
can,
faces.
I think you can go to YouTube.com/ at Movie Voyage Pod as well. That's the URL. So if you'd like to find us there, do it. And if you don't want to find us anywhere, you don't have to do anything. It's even easier.
No, you do. You do want to do it. You want to find
I like
us.
to leave that up to them.
You
I don't want
to give us reviews.
I don't want to treat our audience like women in movies before the 2000s.
Not give them any agency.
Exactly. They've got their own decisions to make.
Well, if you are inclined to, give us a 5-star review.
Yeah.
Give us a nice review.
Yeah, and all 5-star reviews will be read on the podcast. Now, speaking of, I think we do have a 5-star review that we can whip out.
Right.
So, if you will kindly play the theme song for me for our 5-star review.
How do I play it?
No, you sing it.
Our theme song?
Yeah.
I can't just... Da, da, da,
You're doing a great job.
Yep,
keep it going. Very good. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Okay. That was it. That was the best I could do. But that's how it is.
Okay. All right. So here is a 5-star review.
Great.
From Rose Tinted Reels. I didn't leave this, but I think it was my co-host from my other podcast. Nice. Now, you might say that's cheating, and, well, you might be right. But the point is, for right now, I'm going to read it. It's a 5-star review. The subject is charming and informative. The body of the review says, both hosts are charming and informative. It is interesting to hear about these classic films reviewed by a modern perspective. While I know Zachary from his other works, shout out to Rose Tinted Reels, this has a very different feel. Excellent job to Sylvana and Zachary. Can't wait to hear more.
We love that.
We do. And like I said, if you want to leave a 5-star review, we're going to read it out on here. So it can be as glowing as you'd like it to be. And if you have some very harsh invective to convey, then also put that in a 5-star review, because we'll read it on here and embarrass the heck out of ourselves for your own amusement.
That's right. We love doing that.
You can say anything. You can make me say something silly. You know, you can make me feel foolish for your amusement. Do it.
Yeah, and if you are a huge Kurosawa fan and you think Seven Samurai is the greatest movie ever told, don't you want to embarrass Zach for his sakes? You do.
Yeah.
So leave a 5-star review.
I mean, obviously, you're not going to have any good points to make, but you can certainly try, and I welcome that.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. I've been Zach.
And I'm Sylvana.
We'll see you next time.